These are the hidden costs of moving to Venice, Florida that nobody tells you, but I'm going to tell you in this video right now. So it's not just your mortgage payment. And a lot of people would maybe think about, okay, what's, the cost of the home and what's the interest? Sure, that's a big chunk of what you're going to be paying, but as always, we keep it real with you on this channel. And so I want to make sure you're aware of and that I'm pointing out all the different fees and costs that come with moving to the area. So the first, and this one is maybe a big surprise. I'm going to get into some more overlooked ones in a second, but it's one of the bigger costs, and it's going to be your taxes. So with home prices going up so much over the last 3-4 years, starting to come back down the last couple actually, but with them going up, your property taxes, if you buy something brand new or just move into a new home right now, with the price going up, your tax bill is going to be significantly higher than if you were to have bought it before prices went crazy. Basically, if you bought it in like 2019, 18, 17, and there's a cap on how much each year that your property taxes are going to go up. So that would be one of the big ones, and it's going to depend on the home. Everything's relative to the home that you're going to buy as far as what that tax bill is going to be a year. But a good ballpark idea, is to expect, I would say, just figure about 1.5% of what the home price is going to be. And it could be a little more or a little less depending on a lot of factors, but about 1.5%. If you just figure on that, you should be pretty good on that estimate as far as what your property taxes are going to be for the year. That's one other thing you got to be careful of, because like I mentioned before, if you bought it in 2017, it's capped on how much it's going to go up each year. So if you look at the property taxes for the place when you're going to buy it and you're like, oh, they were only this much. Well, what if the person bought it in like 2009, right after the market crashed, and they got it for really, really cheap? And again, it's only went up a little bit each year for them because it's capped. Well, that might give you an unrealistic perspective of what the property taxes actually are going to be, which is why you would probably want to do about that 1.5% price of what you're going to be purchasing it for. That will give you a better ballpark idea of what to actually expect. Second big cost that some people talk about, but nobody, I feel like, is telling you the truth online. Some people either won't talk about it at all to act like it doesn't exist, and other people will talk about it because they make these doom and gloom YouTube channels who only ever talk about negative things and how the whole market's going to crash and how the world is crashing for that matter, and they'll want to make you think it's as bad as possible. And what I'm talking about is insurance. And if there's ever been an area where this gets sensationalized one way or the other, it's been Florida, especially right now. The amount of comments, I say this in a lot of videos, but I got to keep saying, because I know we deal with clients all the time. By the way, if you're looking to buy or sell a home in the Venice area and anywhere really from Sarasota down to Port Charlotte, Inglewood, or the entire Orlando metro, we know these areas very well, and we can help you. Get a hold of our team, 941-221-1897. Call or text us at any time. We can help you avoid mistakes, answer a lot of those questions that are impossible to find online, and save you a lot of money. We've done that for a lot of people and love to do that for you. But we often get a lot of people that we're working with saying, yeah, so it's like $7,000 a year, give or take, for insurance. And just the way their faces light up when we tell them no. So there's a lot of factors that go into this, which I'm going to get into a little bit here. But, the age of the home, what's the condition of it? Where's it located? All these things are going to make big differences. As a rule of thumb, though, I can tell you this. If the home, I would say, was built in like 2000s, like 2005-ish or newer, generally your insurance rates are going to be a little bit lower, but their faces light up when we tell them, like, no, we live about 2 miles from the actual Gulf waters. We don't have hurricane impact windows or shutters or boards that we put up for that matter. I'm not saying that this is a good thing, but we probably should get some, honestly. But we don't have any of that. A pretty new roof, and our insurance is about $2,600 for the year. No, actually, I take that back. $2,300. It went down $300 this year. And again, there's a lot of variables and factors that go into that, but the amount of people that make videos on YouTube, or the amount of comments that we see also online, I can understand why people think it's $7,000 a year bare minimum, and they'll make videos like, oh yeah, this person paid $15,000 for the year, and that's what you should expect. I'm like, no, that's a worst case scenario. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not even saying it's not possible for it to be higher than that. Like, it's very possible that you might have a $25,000 a year insurance premium, but man, I would like to see what kind of a place that is and where it's located and what the condition of it is. Because I just cannot imagine, most people that are actually looking to move to Florida, and Venice for that matter, paying much more than maybe $5,000, $6,000 a year. And again, like, people think the expected low end is $7,000, and I would say for a lot of people, again, there's going to be areas where maybe it's going to be above that, but for most people, again, age of the home, condition and location, and A lot of factors are going to go into it, but for most people, probably going to be well below that $7,000 a year mark. So take that into consideration, but it is a cost that has to be factored in that a lot of people maybe aren't thinking about. Now, again, if you are looking to buy or sell in this area, we can help you with getting a hold of people as far as, to get an idea of what you would actually be paying for your insurance and get some quotes before you would move into home. So it's not like well, I'm hoping it's going to be under that 7,000, but I don't know, or I'm hoping it's going to be around 23,000. Or I'm hoping it's going to be around 2,300 because that's what Jesse said. No, we'll help you out so you have a better sense for what you're actually going to pay, and you're not just like going into it hoping for the best. We don't want that. Okay, here's another hidden cost. And man, I ain't gonna lie, this one has really it got kind of high last summer, but this summer was pretty bonkers. Our utility bills, as far as electricity mainly. Water bill, it's just me and my wife in the house, and we do have some people come to visit, and sometimes we'll be there for weeks at a time. So I guess you could maybe average it out to like us being a household of 3 based on that. There's a lot of times where we have like 4 or 5 people in the house, and then there's a lot of times it's just me and Haiti. So take that for what it's worth, but our water bill is about $100 a month, give or take. So for most of you that would be looking to move to Venice, I would say it'd probably be around there. Maybe bump it up a little bit more or a little bit less, depending on how many people are in the house and how much water you're going to use. But the electricity one is the one that went crazy. And I think this might be a case for a lot of people. I think a lot of people's electric bills have went up over the last year. But man, this summer we had a couple months where our electric bill was just shy of $200, which was pretty new for us. 1-story home, which a lot of homes in Florida are going to be. There are a few 2-story homes, and I know some of those can get even higher. Obviously, it's a bigger home, but sometimes they'll have 2 air conditioning units. At least some people we know that have 2-story homes have that as their setup. So, those are some things to consider. But, if you have a 1-story home, ours is about 1,600 square feet. That's how much we paid for in the hot months where the air conditioning was running a lot. And also depends on the temperature that you're going to keep the home at. Like we kept it a little cooler than previous years. This year we kept it around like 73, 74. When we first moved to Florida, we were living it up and enjoying the heat. We would keep everything at like 79, 78, and that helps bring down the air conditioning bill. And you do adjust to that, by the way. That's one thing to point out. Like people are like, oh man, you're crazy though. Some people will be like 79 degrees in the house. Are you nuts? But if you keep it at that temperature, your body does start to adapt to that and it starts to become a little bit more comfortable. So just one thing to consider. If you want to maybe lower your air conditioning bill, you might have to go through a little bit of a struggle phase to adapt, but it can happen. But that is one thing that has went up. Now, that being said, during the winter months, here's a few things that might surprise you. Number one, there might be, the air conditioning will run for like maybe an hour or 2, maybe 3, most days, maybe not all days, because of just how perfect the temperatures are here in the winter. And some days it might not kick on at all, or you just decide you're going to turn it off because you don't really need to, get that 1 degree change in the house. Like, is it really worth it? Other thing that might surprise you with the winter months is there will be some days you'll turn on the heat. And you'll be like, no way. Florida, Venice, by the beach, you live that far south in Florida? No way. Yeah, there's a few days you'll want to turn it on. Because again, you're going to adjust. And 55 will feel cold. 60 will feel kind of cold. 55 will definitely feel cold, I think. 50 for sure will feel cold. And so there'll be some nights and mornings, maybe even days where the highs will get, for sure mornings where it'll get well below 50. But not super common. As a whole, I would say your low will be around 50, give or take. 5 degrees, but then during the day usually gets up to like 70, 75 or so. But there will be days where maybe the high is only like 55. In those days, yeah, you're gonna want to run the heat. But that being said, during the winter months, I'm trying to think, I want to say like $55, $45. We've had some months where the electric bill was down to 65. So you're making up some money on those months. But during the summer months, during the peak, like your June kind of, but more so July, August, like those are the peak months. You're going to be running the air conditioning more, and that electric bill can get kind of high. Oh, and I just thought of one other thing that's worth pointing out with that utility situation. It depends on where you're going to live in Venice, because if you live in, let's say, South Venice, it's going to be on well and septic. So you're not going to have a water bill, but there will be some maintenance, of those systems that you'll have to keep in mind. But that will help with the water bill side of things. Overall. So one thing to put into consideration, but generally, if you're living in like in a planned community or like Venice Island, then you're going to be on city water and sewer. So then you're going to have that water bill for your utilities. Another bill, back to the whole being in a planned community or not thing. If you are in a planned community, I can't give you a cost for this because it's going to depend on the community, but there could be potentially CDD fees and or HOA fees. Now, some things to consider with that is some people like to look at that as just like money you're throwing away. And maybe not. So some examples, there's some communities that are only going to have an HOA. Like our community, we don't have a CDD fee, but there's HOA, and it's a lower priced one. It's about $100 a month, and it's basically getting us sidewalks, it's getting us street lights, which a lot of, like South Venice, like you're not in a planned community, you don't have an HOA, but because of that, you're probably not gonna have sidewalks or street lights. There's a few isolated areas that might have a sidewalk and maybe a couple street lights, but for the most part, not gonna get that. And we also get a community pool and a little community like clubhouse thing. And so that's like on the low end, I would say. But then there's ones that go higher, right? And they're going to include more things generally, maybe a fitness center, maybe a dog park, could include pickleball, tennis courts, maybe basketball courts, all kinds of amenities, maybe a more resort style pool, maybe a multiple pools, maybe a library, all kinds of different things. And so, sometimes for a higher price HOA, you're going to get more of those things. Sometimes you're also going to have CDD fees for like the maintenance of the common areas of the community and things like that. And basically it's like another tax that you're paying on top of your property taxes, because that community is basically saying we're having our own little infrastructure that we're going to maintain, right? And so on top of that, you're also looking at a few other things. Obviously this is about the cost, but just to give a little bit of nuance with everything so you understand what it's all about, the community is going to have restrictions, right? And so that could be a pro or a con for you as far as people telling you what you can and can't do, as far as the color of your home, the way the home looks, how well it's maintained, the trees that you cannot have, how well you're maintaining your grass and things like that, having a business vehicle parked in the road. A lot of communities won't allow that, especially like overnight. So those are some things that you have to consider, but also it's going to make the community look a certain way, feel a certain way, and have a certain standard. And generally that's going to keep the property values higher. So in a way, you're paying this money to have, the community kind of managed. You don't have a board and maybe some things such as the gate being maintained and the sidewalks and the streetlights and all that kind of stuff and the roads. And you're getting all that included. So a lot of people look like, well, I'm just paying this money and it's going nowhere. Well, kind of, but it's also going to keep your property value higher and keep some of those things that are nice about your community nice. And then also one thing worth mentioning is that's more for, we're talking like single family homes. And then like if you start getting into the villa territory, like if you don't know what a villa is, it's basically like up north, a lot of people will call it a duplex, like a side-by-side duplex where, they share a wall, but they're two completely separate units. You each get your own garage, usually, your own kitchen. There's nothing shared about it. There's no shared entryway or anything like that. You might share a driveway at the most, but generally speaking, everything else is pretty much separated. And so like with the villa, you might get lawn maintenance included, and or maybe they'll maintain also the bushes. If you're living in like a condo or a townhome, now you might be looking at more things getting included. Townhome will usually be a little bit more similar to what like a villa would get, but like a condo, you might get your water bill included. So you're gonna pay probably more every month, but your water bill is gonna be included. And depending on the townhome or villa, definitely with condos, there might be, some of your exterior maintenance, like the roof and things like that included, and or the exterior insurance for sure. Like with condos, it's, part of what you're paying for is the exterior insurance, and you're still gonna have to pay your own insurance for everything inside the condo walls, right? That would be you, and then your HOA fees for a condo would cover the outside. So those are some extra fees to put into consideration. So with a home in an HOA, you might be looking at, if you live in South Venice area, no HOA fee. You live in a planned community, I would say low end $50, maybe probably closer to $100 on up. Just depends on how many things are included. You might be looking at $200, $300, maybe $400, possibly more. But that would be for like a lot of stuff being included. With a condo, probably bare minimum, I would say $200, $250. But again, you're gonna get more included. It also might include things like cable or internet, things like that. May or may not include water. Just depends, but water and things like that are a little bit more common. So, those are some things to consider. Yes, you're paying that every month, but now you also don't have a water bill, So all things that need to be considered, but those are some hidden costs that you definitely want to put in consideration and things to, put into your monthly budget. Which brings me to another big one. And again, this is kind of one of the upsides of being like in a condo, possibly a townhome or a villa, but like the maintenance of the outside. So a couple things with this. Number one, the roof, right? That's a pretty big expense. And one thing people don't understand, and a big detail to point out, is if you got a shingle roof in Florida, I don't care if you got 45-year shingles, generally insurance companies want that roof to be 15 years or younger. And honestly, I would probably recommend the same, because we've seen enough roofs that are older than that where the shingles very easily get brittle. You can see the beach over here, actually, the water. I'll show you that real quick. But yeah, the shingles can get brittle from all the sun and the heat that we get all year round, and then the rain in the summer months. We get rain just about every day. Usually lasts for about an hour, half hour, but all that will start to add up and make those shingles brittle, and you could have a big problem on your hands if you do not get that roof replaced. So that's one thing you're gonna have to put into consideration, is the cost of that new roof being more frequent than if you're living in one of the more northern states. Like, again, if you don't know, I'm from Wisconsin. So up there, if you got a 30-year shingle, probably expect it to last around that 30 years. That's not the case down here. Now, as you can see, actually over here, there's some homes with clay or tile roofs and metal roofs. You're gonna get a little bit more lifespan out of those. So that's one thing to consider if you want to maybe not replace the roof quite so frequently, but costs more to get those kinds of roofs put on to begin with. So those are all things that have to be, put into consideration. And then on top of that, you could see obviously a lot of the homes down here, there's no siding, right? So most of them, they're going to be stucco, and it's going to need to get repainted every so often as well. It just depends on how much sun and all that and the color and things like that, and if it's getting cracks in it. But that's another cost that you're going to want to consider. And then outside of that, the maintenance of like your yard and things like that. Maybe it's not very uncommon in Venice anyways for a lot of people to just pay someone to do that, to do at least the lawn mowing and the trimming and maybe spraying for bugs and for weeds. So like for us in our neighborhood, I'm trying to think, we got someone that mows the lawn for a lot of people, and he does it basically as needed, but he only charges like 25-ish bucks a month. But I don't know if that's just for our community because it's so close for him, but that's a ballpark. I think that's probably on the low end, maybe expect a little bit more than that. I mow my own lawn, so I've only had him do it basically if we're out of town or whatever a few times. So, a lot of the maintenance and things like that, like the cost for us is my time, you know what I mean? And I have an electric mower and trimmer and things like that. So whatever charging the batteries is costing, but if you're, if you're using a gas mower or whatever, those costs and your time going into it might, be things you want to consider. If you're retired and you got all the time in the world, then time doesn't maybe mean as much. I'm really, really busy, so my time means a lot. So, spending the time to do that is like an expense. But that being said, I'm also saving money paying for it to be done. But on top of that, we do pay to have someone spray the lawn, and that's another expense. That's about, I'm trying to think what we pay. I think it's like 45 bucks, and it's like he does it 6 times a year. So I just did the math, and it's actually about $270 a year for the spraying. So, another little expense. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you do it on your own. Maybe you go to Home Depot and get your own spray for the lawn. I don't know, whatever you want to do. But those are all little things that start to add up. But again, if you're living somewhere else, those are all things you're also probably paying for. If you're living up north, maybe you're paying someone to like do snow removal during the winter months or whatever the case may be. So, those are things that are just, you should put into consideration, especially the roof. I think that would be one of the bigger ones that's a little bit different than up north. I think it's also worth noting the tree and shrub maintenance is a different animal here than up north, just for the simple fact that, again, it rains just about every day during the summer. And especially during those months, you'll see things grow really, really fast. But it's not like we have like a dormant season, because in the colder months, we're still talking it being like 70 degrees most days. So things are going to continue to grow. So there's a lot more maintenance required for shrubs and weeds, because weeds will just like shrubs like these wouldn't be impossible for some random weed to grow in there and becomes like a full-blown bush like this, but it's a weed like within a few weeks, maybe a month. And so those are some other little things to consider, just the maintenance on that side of things, trimming the bushes, getting rid of the weeds, and the time that goes into that, and or money if you're going to pay someone to do it. Again, I think that's kind of one of the upsides of maybe living somewhere that does, have the maintenance included, especially like, a lot of condos, like you're not going to have your own bushes, it's the community's bushes or the building's bushes, and all that's going to be handled for you. But maybe you don't want to be paying someone to do that, and that's, A-okay. You got to decide what's okay with you. But, those are all costs that do add up and things that add a little bit to your overall expenses that should probably be considered. Okay, and then this one's a little bit of a trickier one, but definitely one that should probably be considered. And it's the cost of commuting. Now, a lot of people that live here are retired, maybe work from home. A lot of people that live in Venice area maybe, have a job right in Venice. So if that's the case, then you're probably not going to be looking at having to, do too much of a commute, because getting around Venice is a breeze. You're talking like most of Venice stuff you can get to with like 10, maybe 15 minutes, give or take. But outside of that, if you're looking at maybe going up to Sarasota or Tampa, now your commute could get a little bit longer. Going up to Sarasota, you're talking like a 30 to 45 minute drive, give or take, depending on what end of Venice you're coming from to what end of Sarasota. You're going to Tampa, probably about an hour, give or take, depending on time of day. Same with Sarasota a little bit too. The time of day is going to affect that. But that's another cost that could add up if you do have to drive to a bigger city for work. We do have a lot of work opportunities in Venice, but it's a little more limited. You're talking more like construction, the trades, heating, air conditioning, electrical, plumbing, remodeling, things like that. You've got obviously all the service-oriented jobs with stores and shops and restaurants. Obviously education and medical. Those I would say would be some of the main job opportunities here. And then maybe some more tourist type related things, such as doing like fishing charters and things like that, or something along those lines, maybe scuba diving or something like that. But outside of that, those, and banks, I guess, would be another one to point out. But again, that's kind of more service oriented, I guess you could say. And outside of, we don't have like a lot of like office type jobs, in Venice and things like that, or things in other industries like tech and things like that. It's just, there's not a lot of that here. So you might be looking at traveling a little bit more to do that. And that's an expense that, I can't really tell you how much it's going to be, because gas is always, especially lately, it seems like today it's like really expensive, and wow, things are getting way better with gas the next day. And it's been yo-yoing a lot. So I can't really give you a cost on that. What I can say is you don't have to worry too much about toll roads until you start getting up into the Tampa area. But if you're just basically going from Venice down to like, let's say Fort Myers or up to Sarasota, toll roads aren't a thing. But you do have to figure in the gas costs. But that covers most of the main costs you're going to be looking at with moving to Venice. If you are looking to buy or sell a home in the area and have any other questions, there's a lot that are impossible to find online. Get a hold of our team, 941-221-1897. We helped a lot of people move to the area. We'd love to help you too and get you answers to questions that are impossible to find online. Avoid mistakes and save you as much money as possible. And if you want to know more about what it's like to live in Venice, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching, and live breezy.